Session 4. Sarah, 34 years old. Last week, she walked out. 3 emails. 8 years. 1 photograph. She told us she felt nothing when she left. She told us she felt her daughter watching. Today, we find out what happened next. This is Session 4. In her own words.
The first thing I did when I got home that afternoon was make tea. Not coffee. Tea. I don't know why that detail matters, but it does. I had been drinking coffee for 8 years because Daniel's office always smelled like coffee, and somewhere along the way, I had adopted it like I had adopted so many other things about that place. That afternoon, I made tea, and I sat at my kitchen table, and I waited. My daughter came home from school at 3:30. She dropped her bag at the door the way she always did. She kicked off her shoes. She came into the kitchen and looked at me sitting there in the middle of the afternoon and said, "Mummy, why are you home?" And I said, "I work from home now." And she said, "Forever?" And I said, "Yes, forever." She thought about this for a moment. Then she said, "Good." And she went to find a snack. I sat there for a long time after that, just sitting, listening to her move around the kitchen, listening to the sounds of my own house in the middle of the afternoon, sounds I had never heard before because I had always been somewhere else. Margaret responded at 7:43 that evening. I know the exact time because I had been watching my phone, not anxiously, just watching. The way I had learned to watch things. Her email was 3 paragraphs. The first paragraph thanked me for bringing this to her attention. The second paragraph said the matter would be investigated thoroughly and confidentially. The third paragraph asked if I would be available for a call the following week. I read it 4 times. And then I replied with 1 sentence. I said, "I am available whenever is convenient for you." Claire responded the next morning. 8:14. She said she remembered me. She said she had 3 conversations she thought I should have. She said, and I remember this exactly. She said, "People like you don't stay available for long. Let's move quickly." I sat with that sentence for a while. People like you. I hadn't thought of myself as a type of person in a long time. I had thought of myself as Daniel's coordinator, Daniel's researcher, Daniel's invisible engine. People like you was something different.
How long did it take before you heard back?
Daniel responded at 11:17 that same morning. I had been wondering when he would. Part of me thought he might call, show up, do something dramatic. Daniel liked drama when it served him. But his email was short. 5 sentences. He said he was shocked. He said he was hurt. He said he had always considered me a friend as much as a colleague. He said he hoped we could speak before I made any final decisions. He said, whatever I had heard, whatever concerns I had, he was sure they could be resolved. Whatever I had heard. I read that phrase 3 times. Whatever I had heard. As if my 6-page email to Margaret was based on rumor. As if the metadata and the timestamps and the email chains were things I had heard somewhere. As if 8 years of evidence was gossip. I didn't respond to Daniel. Not that day, not the next day, not the day after that. Because there was nothing left to say. I had said everything I needed to say in 6 pages to Margaret. I had said everything I needed to say in 2 sentences to Daniel. I had nothing left to give him, not even a response. The week that followed was the strangest week of my life. I woke up every morning without an alarm. I made breakfast for my daughter. I walked her to school. I came home and I worked, real work, my own work, building my portfolio for Claire, writing proposals that had my name on them from the very first line. I picked my daughter up in the afternoon. I cooked dinner. I helped with homework. I put her to bed. And every night I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea, and I thought, is this what it was supposed to feel like? All along, is this what I was working so hard to protect? On the Thursday of that week, Margaret called. She was careful, professional. She didn't tell me much. She said the investigation was ongoing. She said they were taking it seriously. She said she wanted me to know that. She said, and I want you to know we are very aware of the timeline you've documented. I thanked her. I hung up, and I went to pick up my daughter from school.
And Daniel, did he respond?
That evening, she asked me to help her with a project for class. She had to write about someone she admired. She had chosen me. She asked me, "Mummy, what do you do that's brave?" And I sat there for a moment, and I thought about 8 years. I thought about 3 emails. I thought about a photograph and a coat and a room I walked out of. And I said, I decide what I'm worth, and then I act accordingly. She wrote it down very carefully, in her best handwriting. And then she looked up at me and said, I'm going to do that too. And I thought, yes, you are. That was the moment I stopped being afraid. Not because everything was resolved, not because I knew how the investigation would end, not because I had a new job yet, or a plan, or any certainty about what came next. I stopped being afraid because my daughter wrote down what I said in her best handwriting, and she believed it. And for the first time in 8 years, so did I.
We'll continue next session. What Sarah experienced in the weeks following her resignation is something psychologists call post-traumatic clarity, the moment when the body and mind finally exhale after a prolonged period of controlled tension. It doesn't always feel like relief. Sometimes it feels like falling. Next time, we find out what Daniel did when he realized what was coming.